Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Don't forget to share the video and definitely leave a comment. Hopefully this week we're going to go live. We're going to do a live question and answers. Let you guys, post up whatever questions you want to ask, and I'm going to answer them. And as everyone knows, the mission is to save kids from life imprisonment and premature death. So I'm hoping somebody gets to see this video, and I hope it changes their life. Prison riots have been going on for a long time. Some of the most famous happened in Ohio and in my own state, New York. Many of you might know about the Attica Prison riots. You might have seen that Attica Prison movie where the black dude's screaming, "Hot soup!"
I'll bang your ass, motherfucker! I want hot soup! Hot soup!
But that riot was bigger than hot soup. It was a group of men that wanted to be treated like men. Because before we're inmates, before we're prisoners, before we're convicts, before we're looked at as scumbags by the cops, we're men. And men should always respect men. And on many occasions while I was in prison, I had to tell the police that. Respect me like a man. Because I'm going to respect you like a man. And when we step out of that zone, then there's issues on both sides. So let's get to it. Let's get to these prison riots, right? Let's get to Attica first. Attica's like the basis. It's like the root. You see what this looks like? That's what a prison riot looks like when things are all said and done. Many men lost their lives in that riot. They lost their lives because they were fighting to be treated like men instead of like dogs, instead of third world country citizens. They were pissed off. Riots come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. Sometimes there's riots against the police. And usually when that happens, it doesn't matter what car you're in, what race you are. Usually the prisoners will come together because they believe in that one mission, because they believe that there's two teams. But there's also some guys outside of that team that think they're cool with the police. They think they're cool with the cops. And they'll talk to them after the riot and tell on people and things like that. Those things really happen in prison too. Although some people like to sugarcoat it and act like they don't, but they do. For those of you that watch First 48, you know how this goes. So back to the Attica prison riots. People lost their lives, but them dudes were fighting for a common goal. Prison was different back then. People came together back then. They wanted to be treated fairly. They wanted to be able to eat hot soup. They wanted to have clean clothes and programs, educational programs, rehabilitative programs. They wanted to be able to earn their way out of prison. And they were being oppressed. Make no mistakes, they were being oppressed. And the end result was many prisoners died. Some of the cops died. Some of those men were tortured. Absolutely tortured. And this is Attica, from my home state. Not far from my house, actually, about an hour and a half away from where I live. All these things happened. We're going to go to prisoner on prisoner riots, though, because those are the things that I personally seen. I've personally seen some things happen at USP Lee, United States Penitentiary Lee in Jonesboro, Virginia. I've seen a few different things. One of those riots was between the North Carolina dudes and the Virginia dudes. And most of you that tune into prison shows, in federal prison, pretty much everybody's in a car. You can call it a car, you can call it a group, you can call it a disruptive group, you could call it whatever you want. But really, they're gangs. A bunch of dudes that come together and they have each other's back. There's a brotherhood built in those cars. I can tell you that from personal experience. I had dudes that I was in the car with that, I love them dudes like my brothers. They were my family away from my family. I would break bread with them dudes, eat with them dudes, and go to bat for them dudes because they were all I had and I was all they had. So while in USP Lee, a Virginia dude and North Carolina dude, they run together. Those two cars actually ran together at USP Lee. And there was an incident where the two guys are cellies. They're drinking. They're getting drunk. And the Virginia guy stabs the North Carolina guy with a knife in the face. And once that happened, things got real. People started putting in that work. They got busy. They started planning a attack on the Virginia dudes immediately. I mean, this happened immediately. The dude got stabbed right before the count. They spent the count in the cell talking. They came out after the count. The North Carolina dudes grouped up, and they had a plan. They were going to attack some dudes in the chow hall at dinner time at 5 o'clock, and they were going to attack the dudes from Virginia out on the yard. And I happened to be out on the yard when it happened. The first thing I heard was a concussion grenade coming out of the kitchen. And there was a lot of stories told in there where the North Carolina guys just set it off. They started putting in that work. And for those of you that don't know what putting in that work is, that means they got physical. They got to stabbing, they got to punching, they got to fighting, they got to hitting people with pans. They said some of the Virginia dudes, and this ain't no knock on no Virginia dudes because there's some tough Virginia dudes out there too, said some of them dudes were just jumping over the counter trying to get away. Some of them dudes didn't even know what was going on. The only problem was that they were in that Virginia car. They didn't even know that their homeboy had stabbed one of the North Carolina dudes. But the North Carolina dudes had a mission. They were going to attack everybody from Virginia. And that's exactly what they did. And as soon as the concussion grenade went off in the kitchen, it was heard out in the yard, and it was almost like that was the key to get busy on the yard. And that's when things got ugly. The first part of it was two dudes from North Carolina had jumped on the Virginia dude on the basketball court. And I'm going to give it to the Virginia dude. He was working. He dropped one of the North Carolina dudes, and he was working. You know, might have been because he was fighting for his life, literally. And what happened was 3 or 4 dudes just swarmed this dude. He tried to run. He started running. Dudes were picking up softballs out there on the yard. They're throwing softballs at him. One of the dudes climbed over on the top of the backstop to the baseball diamond trying to get away. These guys were throwing baseballs at him. They grabbed a baseball bat. They're chasing these dudes, hitting them with baseball bats. Things were just like total chaos. And I'm over by the basketball court and I'm watching this. And now there's another assault on the basketball court where the North Carolina dudes are on a Virginia dude. Another Virginia dude, man. There wasn't many of them on the yard outside at that time. Most of them had went to chow. And the next thing I know, I see the cops come running out. They got these little splat ball guns. And I'm hearing the sirens go off. And when things like that happen on the yard, the guards start yelling out of the speaker to get on the ground. They tell you that, live shots will be fired. And they mean that. Live shots will be fired. And then I heard the echo. I heard the bang like thunder. Boom! You hear the shotgun go off and the cops shoot. Boom! They shoot into a bucket right underneath the tower to let you know that they mean business. And then I heard the window open again. And I heard them rack that AR-15. You actually heard it. Whoosh, whoosh. And then you hear another shot. Boom! And then I seen all the cops just hitting the yard with them splat ball guns. And I'm watching this. And it was almost like I was in that movie, The Matrix. It was crazy. Everything slowed down for the moment. Concussion grenades went off, right? And they had these grenades that go off and boom! And all these little black balls, like little pellets, little BBs. They're bigger than what the BB guns have. There's these little black balls. And I actually feel like I felt them hit me because I was that close. There was nowhere to go. I was just in the middle. And I felt those little balls hitting me. Bing, bing, bing. I felt them hit me before I really heard the grenade go off. Cops are screaming, get on the ground. Nobody's listening. And then you hear the actual live shots be fired. And if you ever heard a live round be fired, you can hear it whistle. And I hear the whistle. Zoom, zoom. And this is when I got on the ground. I get on the ground and I'm watching. I see people getting tackled. I see these dudes still chasing the North Carolina dudes, still throwing softballs at him. The guys on the backstop are throwing balls at him, trying to knock him off. Things get crazy. Absolutely crazy. The end result, the police get it together. They handcuff people, take everybody away. And eventually, people get shipped out of the prison. North Carolina dudes, shot caller. And we're going to talk about shot callers in another video. We'll talk about what shot callers really are instead of all the made up stuff. All the stuff that, don't necessarily add up in the places that I've been. Don't get me wrong. Shot callers are necessary. Most of the shot callers are tough. Some of them are faking though. We're going to talk about that part. So long story short, North Carolina dudes are rounded up. Virginia dudes are rounded up. Shot callers talk to each other. Some people get transferred. Some people get to come back out on the yard. They're all friends again. Yeah, they're all friends again. Is that crazy? These dudes are out here throwing baseballs at each other, hitting each other with softballs, stabbing each other, fighting. And now they're all friends again 2 weeks later. But the main dudes that were putting in the work, they all get transferred. And the rest of the people stay back. That isn't the only thing that happened at USP Lee. See, USP Lee was a place where it was kind of laid back, but if you were looking for it, you could definitely get it. And what I mean by that was if you just want to do your time, most of the time you could do that. But if you were looking for trouble, you got involved in some nonsense, you could lose your life there. And I've seen people lose their lives there. I've actually seen it with my own eyes. Not a pretty sight, not a nice thing. And being from New York, you know, there was another riot, and I was cool with a bunch of these dudes, because there was a little mini riot with the Bloods and the DC Blacks. And it started over a dice game. You know, all those stories you hear about prison about don't gamble and don't use drugs and don't mess with homosexuals, and you'll be okay. If you don't do any of those things, you're going to be all right. It's not always true. But a lot of problems do happen from gambling, drug use. Drinking's a major, major issue. People getting drunk. You know, when you get drunk, man, you get beer muscles. And those are the dudes that usually end up dead. They get those beer muscles. They become tough guys. They start talking that nonsense. But there's a real tough guy to put that knife in them. And dudes put that knife in you in there. That's for sure. So anyway, this riot started over a dice game. Over $1 bet over a dice game. And the dude that was running the table was a dude out of Las Vegas that I kicked it real tough with named Wicked. Wicked was a blood, tough dude. You know, he was a man that stood on principles. And they ended up taking the dice and threw him over the fence or over the wall. Someone got pissed off over a $1 bet. And that's when all hell broke loose. Remember, there was a dude named Bandana from Jersey. Bandana, if you're watching the video, man, shout out to you. And them blood dudes came together with the New York dudes, because a lot of New York dudes are bloods over there. And then the New York car had an alliance with the Bloods. So they came together. And once again, things got real. People were putting in that work. And I'm going to give it to you real, man. Them Bloods had about 15, 20 dudes. And not a knock on the DC dudes. I want no one getting mad over watching the video or upset. But these blood dudes were working, man. 20 of them. Working full force. And for real, they were whooping them dudes, man. They were winning. They were winning. Now I'm talking about working, man. Knife play. Horseshoes were flying around. Bocce balls. And once again, the police came. With the masks on. Grenades. Shotgun shells going off. Nothing to do in that situation but hit the ground. They start making those calls from that tower about live rounds. I hit the ground. It's about 40, 50 feet away. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like I said, back then I wasn't the best dude. I used to like watching that stuff. Just like some people that watch these videos, they like listening to that stuff. They like what's real. You know, we live in a culture that glamorizes the criminal. Look how we do Bonnie and Clyde, and how we looked at John Gotti, or some of them series on HBO with the mafia and, you know, all that. So I was in prison for all that stuff. But we glamorize the criminal. We glamorize violence. We've done it since the beginning of time. The gladiator days, when the Romans would put men in that gladiator pit to fight each other to the death. Or sometimes they'd throw them in with lions, watch them get ripped apart. We glamorize violence and anger and hatred. You know, we watch UFC, we watch boxing. Those are the things that we're into. And when you watch a UFC fight, a good fight, you're like, yeah, it's a good fight. But let me tell you something. When you watch a prison riot, you're like, damn, look at them dudes getting busy. It's interesting. Some people get excitement out of it. But when you sit back and you think about it, you think about the lives lost in riots, you know, the Attica riots. We think about those type of riots, right? A lot of those were good men that lost their lives fighting for our rights, for the rights that prisoners have now. When we see these other riots where, you know, some dudes might end up dead, we're like, damn, man, dude lost his life. Dude was out there fighting over $1 over a dice game and lost his life. Dude got killed over there because his homeboy stabbed someone else in the face. He had nothing to do with it. He was sitting in the chow hall and got stabbed in the neck. Damn. That's when it starts to affect you. That's when you start to say, man, these prison riots ain't too cool, man. And, dudes that are watching the video, man, check out this. I want you to watch this right here.
Clearly, there's a lot of aggression.
In this crazy surveillance video, you can see inmates throw rocks through puffs of white smoke and shield themselves with items like a bulletin board and a trash can. Then fires started to pop up in the yard. Watch as a fireball falls from the roof. There's also this unexplained explosion on the top left side of your screen.
This is another type of riot, right? Like the prison riots, but a more modern riot, where the prisoners just had enough. Some people watching the video might think, screw prisoners. They committed a crime. They shouldn't have anything. They shouldn't have a TV. They should drink water and eat bread. I don't agree with that. I don't think you should treat people like shit, man. I don't think you should treat your dog like shit. So I definitely don't think you should treat people like shit. And these dudes right here, they weren't having it. They had enough. They might have been rioting about medical. They might have been rioting about the food. They might have been rioting about privileges taken or privileges not given, not being able to call their family. When you had enough, you had enough. You see it with animals in the circus when these people are beating on these animals. That sometimes they attack. Animals attack because you know what? They had enough. It's human instinct. Animal instinct, human instinct. When you had enough, you had enough. But prison riots are real, man. Lives are lost. Mothers are called. They're told that their sons are dead. Sometimes mothers are called by their sons. They have to tell their mom they're giving me the death penalty. I killed a dude in prison and they sentenced me to death. I mean, it's the reality of prison, man. It's the reality of being out here getting money. It's the reality of being out here committing a robbery, right? There's two aspects to being a drug dealer, man. Two aspects to committing robberies or committing violence. Like the drug dealer life. That's the part that you enjoy when you're getting money, hanging out with chicks, doing you. But there's another part. And that part is prison. That's the part that don't feel so good. That's the part that you're like, wow, I regret everything I ever did, every choice I ever made that led to this. I don't want to see you go down that road, man. I don't want to see you sitting in prison. I don't want to see you kill no one. I don't want you to be involved in a prison riot. I don't want you to get killed because your homeboy did something wrong. And now his car or his gang stabs you because you happen to be the first person that they see. Believe me, that stuff happens. That stuff is real. And for those of you that have been in the pen, man, you can relate. Those of you that have been in Pollock or heard the stories about the kid Bubba Sparks from Alabama. He was getting ready to go home. There was a beef over the television. He wasn't involved. Black dude from D.C. said, you know what? The first white dude that walks in, I'm stabbing him. I'm killing him. Bubba Sparks walked in, got stabbed, got killed, ran up into his cell, told his cellie or his homeboy, like, yo, I'm stabbed, man. And he died. His cellie went down there and stabbed the dude that stabbed him. And he died. I think there was 3 murders in one day over there. 2 or 3. So this stuff's real, man. This stuff really happens. Until tomorrow, man, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Bringing it to you real, bringing it to you raw, and we're out.